Let's talk more about this with defense attorney Misty Marris. Misty, there have been a lot of questions to potential jurors about drug addiction, with a lot of them sharing their own stories about family members who've struggled in the past. There are so many Americans who face a struggle with drug addiction. How does that play into the type of juror that the defense would want, that the prosecution would want in this case?
Absolutely. That is a central issue in this case, and that's why we heard the judge questioning on that very issue, because so many people have been touched by drug addiction, either in their family or people that they know. And so it plays into the case because it's expected that Hunter Biden will use the defense that he did not have the requisite intent at the time he was filling out the documentation. And by that, I mean, he will say that he didn't realize that he was a drug addict, because drug addiction is something that you don't really see clearly when you're the individual who's going through and suffering from those issues. And so the issue of addiction and how that plays into the factor of intent is really relevant to both the prosecution and the defense. So, of course, it's a primary factor in jury selection.
Yeah, and we just heard that report from Marshall Cohen explaining that this process is moving quickly. Are you surprised by the pace?
Well, in federal court, the process often is pretty swift, and this judge has the reputation of really keeping things moving. So here, the judge does the questioning. So in state court, it's a little bit different. The lawyers will do voir dire, but here the judge does the initial questioning, and it sounds like she got down to the heart of the issues, where there were individuals who had really strong feelings either about politics or about gun rights on either side, whether it be conservative or more liberal views. And they said that they could not be impartial. They were eliminated from the jury pool. So then we get down to these 36 individuals, and now it's time for both sides, the defense and prosecution, to use what's called their preemptory strikes. This is when each side gets to eliminate certain jurors without making an application for cause, so they don't have to give a reason. But because we're at this situation, it sounds like opening statements are scheduled to go forward tomorrow.
And so with that in mind, for the defense, what would you be focusing on most as a defense attorney, looking at the facts of this case? What would you be focusing on most as they move into the trial?
So it's a tough case for the defense, especially since they were dealt some blows in yesterday's evidentiary hearing and evidentiary decisions by the judge. First, the defense wanted to bring an expert on drug addiction into the courtroom to speak to that very central issue that we were just talking about, forming the requisite intent when Hunter Biden was filling out that form. The judge said no, that expert is not going to testify. They also wanted to question the veracity of the application itself, because a couple of years later, there was a doctored application. And so they wanted to say maybe this isn't valid, or maybe this was not valid at the time, the actual form. So from the defense perspective, you are laser set and focused on saying the prosecution did not prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt, and focusing on that issue of formulating the requisite intent, that knowing intent to falsify that record at the time. So that's going to be where the defense goes. And that's why I think we're seeing the prosecution say, well, we think this case is going to be about 2 weeks. We don't know whether the defense will actually put witnesses on, or will just try and poke holes in what the prosecution puts forward.
All right, Misty Marris, thanks so much for that analysis. We appreciate it. Brianna?